Thank you for having us here today. It's really exciting. Does everyone want to introduce themselves?
Sure. I'm Mark. I'm VP of Growth Marketing and E-commerce at Away. We're a travel and lifestyle brand, direct-to-consumer, that creates thoughtful luggage for modern travel.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Naomi Jacobs. I lead social media strategy for Curate Retail Group. We're comprised of 8 leading brands: QVC, HSN, Zulily, Grandin Road, Garnet Hill, Ballard Designs, Improvements, and Frontgate. And we are the #1 video commerce retailer in the US and #3 and mobile commerce retailer in the US. And we believe in a better way to shop.
Hi, I'm Brie Cassart. I am formerly the VP of E-commerce and Digital Marketing at West Elm. I left the brand a couple weeks ago, and we'll be starting a new adventure in a couple weeks, but I'm not saying where I'm going quite yet. So, but I am excited, and it is not in the home space.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Taggart, the co-founder and CEO of Yotpo. We help brands like Away, Glossier, Untuckit to help them market themselves through their customers' experiences. Big believer that that's how brand building should look like.
Thank you. So our first question really addresses something that I know everyone in the audience, as well as our panelists, are really facing today. There's been an overabundance of competition, rising costs, and increased crowding in the market, and across all channels. And we're being faced with so many challenges in scaling and creating efficient marketing programs. I'd really want to know, as I think a lot of you in this room would, what is the biggest challenge each of you is facing today compared to 2 years ago, and how have you adjusted your strategy to address these challenges?
So at Away, I think we've definitely seen a lot of these market dynamics play out as well. Facebook CPMs continually increasing, particularly during holiday. I think one of the things that we've been thinking about, generally in terms of strategy, is stressing portfolio diversification. So we definitely want to always be in a situation where we don't find ourselves overly dependent on any single channel. So I think that's sort of principle number 1. I think more tactically speaking, we do find that offsetting rising CPMs on the digital side with, say, direct mail, and re-upping and doubling down on direct mail during holiday season, where you don't have auction mechanics at play, where crazy amount of demand just makes CPM spike way up, I think is super helpful. And I think increasingly we're just finding that with everything on the digital side becoming very saturated, that finding new opportunities offline or even in kind of sort of hybrid areas like OTT streaming are very helpful.
Yeah. Love what you said about diversification. I could not agree more. I say that word a lot. But I think the perspective I would offer is around time. I just feel in the social media and digital space in particular, if you think about the way things were even just 2 years ago to the way that they are now, the pace of change is so astounding. And on one hand, it feels like such an incredible opportunity in front of us from the standpoint of these scalable opportunities. But on the other side, it can feel overwhelming and exhaustive to kind of figure out which direction to go. I think from our perspective, we always think about, and it sounds cliche, but we really do think about the customer experience first, and that's kind of the baseline before we move beyond. But that's kind of led us to other solutions that have enabled us to automate things. So as many of you are aware, Zulily is a newer organization that was created digitally native. So very stark contrast to QVC or HSN that are 30 and 40 years old and were created, if you can imagine, like before the internet existed. So we have leaned in really, really heavily to a lot of the proprietary tools and software that they've created, whether it is leveraging advanced analytics or machine learning or AI to automate things like social media advertising, content creation, that kind of take that super hands-on approach and get it off our plate so we can focus on other things. So just trying to make everything go faster.
For us in the home space, or formerly us, I should say, really I think it comes into 2 different categories. One is the amount of competition, which Melissa touched on, feeling it from both the bottom with the new entrants in the home space that are really focused on single products And then from the top, when you have competitors like Amazon and Wayfair who are just putting pressure on you from both sides, and how do you differentiate, how do you stay top of mind with the customer? And then the other bucket is really, you have all of this competition, but then from a consumer point of view, attention spans, we all know, are waning. People will spend maybe 3 seconds with something. And the rule of 7 in marketing, where if you had exposed someone to your brand 7 times, then they would remember you, is no longer the rule of 7. It's the rule of 30, 40. So if you have to reach out to someone 30 times in order for them to remember you, what's that message that you're sharing with them? And in this space, between the increased competition and the waning attention spans, you have to be very specific in how you're communicating with the customer. Versus a couple of years ago, where you could have had more fractured messages as a brand. There are lots of stories you can be telling your customer. I think now more than ever, it's really important to be concise and clear and repetitive so that you are sticky.
Thank you.
So for us, what we've been seeing with brands is very similar. Like on every category, you have a million of army of micro brands on one hand and Amazon on the other hand. So I would say, and this is one of the things we try to help with, is how do you become authentic and how do you become unique to your own community, to your own audience, to your own category? I think that's a massive challenge. There's like tons of examples, but how you stand out in a world where like the product is not enough anymore, the technology is even not enough. Like how do you establish your brand in a very authentic, transparent way?
Thank you. The next question's for Mark and Bree, and what would a marketing panel be without talking about attribution for at least a few minutes? So the question here is, figuring out how to get a complete picture on where conversions are coming from has been a topic that seemingly will not go away. How are each of your brands, well specifically, from Mark and Bree, thinking about a holistic view towards marketing attribution when you're leveraging tactics that live outside of digital marketing?
So I would say
and if you're using any tools, feel free to recommend anything. Everyone needs help in this area.
So I think one thing I would start off with would be to say that I think it's such a common topic because I don't think anyone's really figured it out quite yet. So I think we made a lot of progress at Away, but are by no means, I think, have we perfected the discipline of attribution as of yet. So I think we started off in many ways like a lot of folks in this room did, with basically just relying on Google Analytics to begin with. I think GA is like a pretty great tool. You do have some ability to run different attribution models and get a more robust sense of what your attribution might look like according to different assumptions. I think most of what you said about the increasing investment in offline activities really does throw a wrench into all of that. I think that when we started spinning up podcast and digital radio and TV, I think relying on GA alone definitely becomes a much more imperfect tool. And I think at some point in time too, a lot of brands that I've spoken to, and Away included, get to a point where at some point you're calculating all of the attribution, the conversions attributed to each individual channel, and all of a sudden it equates to more than 100% of the total revenue that you drove in that month.
Double counting is such a huge issue for so many of the brands, and internally it just brings up so many questions about your programs.
Exactly. And so I think what we've done is I think the first thing that we've done is to really focus on actually aggregating our data in a very consolidated way. So I think one of the issues with attribution traditionally is you have all of these various vendors, different marketing channels doing their own reporting, and that's fine for, I think, within channel optimization. But if you're talking about kind of portfolio allocation decisions, it's much less helpful. And I think for us, by being able to aggregate data and be able to join impression level data, order level data, et cetera, all into one master data warehouse, I think is super helpful. We use Amazon Redshift and a bunch of random middleware tools as well. and run a lot of our models out of Looker, which we find to be a super helpful and very powerful tool to be able to leverage our data well.
Great.
At Williams-Sonoma, we have a custom-built multi-touch attribution model where obviously all of the digital channels have been built into that, but we were successful in also adding our catalog to that. So it's not just digital, and we did do some print. But there are other channels which are not in the attribution model. How do you attribute your stores? How do you attribute any TV you do, to your point, Melissa? And I guess my perspective on that is not everything you're doing is purely for conversion purposes. And when you think about your budgets and how you're going to measure the success of those budgets, it doesn't purely come down to conversion. And so you really have to start to think about how you're spending your money in different ways. Because if your goal is brand awareness, maybe it doesn't matter if it's in your attribution model, but you're measuring the success of brand awareness through brand awareness studies and lifts, et cetera. So it just depends on what your goals are and where it needs to live and how you're measuring it.
Have your organizations been supportive of looking at things beyond the, conversion in terms of attribution, and like how have you sold that in?
It's been a journey. And we like to, I think a solid organization likes to measure everything, much like we did at Williams-Sonoma. And it was through measuring in the attribution model that we started to sell in some non-traditional digital channels, but then how do you do things like TV? And West Elm actually launched their first TV campaign last fall, which was not in the attribution model, but it was through addressable TV. And addressable TV, if anyone's done it, you can measure the success of that because you're targeting households, and then you can link it back up and look at the data around who's purchasing, how does your brand awareness lift, et cetera. So we have mostly found success through the measurable channels, not necessarily through, we haven't done a lot of out-of-home as far as subway ads, billboards, et cetera.
Got it. Okay, so moving on to communities. The past few years, we've seen communities start to dictate everything from the way brands communicate with their customers to the products that are being sold. Brands like Glossier, which is a Forerunner company, as is Away, even involve their customers in product development. How are you guys and ladies building and communicating with your communities today that's different from a few years ago? I know that at QVC, this certainly has had to evolve over the past few years. And I think that's something that, a brand like Away has started, and this is just natural to them from day one. But for a number of brands, both of you, it has probably been a little bit of growing pains, I would think.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, growing pains not necessarily in being able to talk to our customer, because that's always been from day one. A customer, we were invited into their living room, if you will, by a television. So we often say, really all of this kind of social conversation, it sort of did originate with our brand in a way. Yeah. But certainly with the way people are now consuming television or consuming content or even just shopping in general, we've had to make serious pivots and shifts in kind of how that happens. And obviously social has been such an amazing catalyst for that change, and the way in which every single customer is essentially an advocate and an influencer, in addition to being a shopper, if you use the tools that are available to you, is incredibly powerful. Two, just quickly, is that we're doing it that I think are interesting. 40 years ago, when someone wanted to be a part of the experience at QVC, they would pick up the phone and we would air their telephone call live on TV. We actually still do it today, just in a very much smaller way. And that excitement is kind of the equivalent, hearing your own review of a product live on air is kind of the equivalent of being like retweeted by a brand today. We often use that parallel. So we're actually streaming all of our live shows, our television shows, from the 5 networks that we have across QVC and HSN to Facebook every day, across about 40 different Facebook pages. So you can watch QVC or HSN live on Facebook every day. We invite customers to converse with us right there. They can ask questions. We've even changed the entire trajectory of a show because of customer feedback, or they want to see a different tutorial. And I know that that's not always readily available to every brand, but with a phone and a Wi-Fi signal, you can be live on Facebook or many other streaming platforms. And it is so incredibly powerful to connect with your customer using live content. It's what we've been doing, and it's what's at our heart. So if you're not investing even a little bit into doing some semblance of live content, I would strongly suggest that you do. And then really quickly, about a year ago, Facebook rolled out the ability for businesses to create groups. And in full transparency, it was something that we didn't immediately jump on at most of our brands. It was kind of like, oh my gosh, seriously, like another thing to do in social media. It just felt super heavy. But we, within the last few months, have kind of really started to lean into this, and it's been so incredible. No algorithmic power to fight the content down. Sometimes a group with 1,000 people can have more engagement on it than our, flagship page that has 2.5 million fans. It's really powerful. Their customers are providing data just to enter the group, because you can kind of gate it a bit and ask them questions before they even enter. It's just such an incredibly powerful tool from both like a customer engagement standpoint and also the information that you can source from it to drive your strategy.
Great. Mark and Bree and everyone, feel free to.
I was just going to say, West Helm was a little bit ahead of the curve as far as communities. We look at our stores as the center of micro communities. And it was about 4 or 5 years ago where we really empowered our store associates by starting the shopkeeper program and letting them listen to the customers in their specific geographic area about what they want and what they need. So everything from customizing the assortments within the stores, things that you might not have seen from the data. For example, maybe stereotypical, but in Miami, we heard that customers were looking for white leather, and that wasn't something that was part of our assortment, but we went ahead and fulfilled that need. So everything from the assortment to the programming in stores to the local craftspeople that we assort within the stores themselves. So it's a really specific experience for those communities.
For us, it's actually something that we are, it's right up our alley. We are big believers. When you think about what we do, we started as a company that enables customer feedback based on reviews. We got really, really good at it because of machine learning, a lot of buzzwords. And then I want to say our last biggest investment was taking all of that customer feedback and analyze it on scale through natural language processing and making it very, very accessible to our brands. So 2 very, very interesting stories I'll tell very, very quickly. One of our customers, Adore Me, I don't know if you know them, a lingerie. We actually proved them that a lot of the content is written through I'm so glad my husband bought me that lingerie. I'm so happy my boyfriend. And actually the buyer persona is the husband or the boyfriend, and they need to launch a couples line. And that's one of their new engines of growth. So actually understanding that on scale. So this is more about the buyer persona. Also, we have another customer called Chubbies for men's. I don't know if you know them, a really, really cool brand. So for them, they actually chose the location of the offline store based on what customers said, where do you like to hang out, what do you love, and then they were able to pin down exactly where the street, the exact square feet that they need to open the store. Every store that they've been opening is a massive success. So combining looking at the online, where are the biggest hubs, and then asking it okay, where do you want us to actually open the store, and analyze it on scale. And I want to say our ability to provide that to brands has been one of the most important things of how do you build a community and how you understand the community on scale. So you get so much customer feedback. Now I want to say because of new advancement in natural language processing, you can actually connect and pinpoint that to get really, really concrete feedback.
Great.
On the way side, I think one of the things that I feel many startups can get into a mode of is just focusing just on data. And one of the disciplines I feel that has, in some cases, gone by the wayside is customer insights or primary research.
Totally.
And I think the way that Away has prioritized a online community of people who are able to provide feedback, who are very interested in being more involved with the brand. This group of people we find to be so valuable, not just because they're able to provide us insights via quantitative surveys or qualitative focus groups, but also because the very nature of actually being able to engage with these people is behavior, is interaction that actually ultimately increases loyalty on their end as well. And so we have started to increase even more our resourcing towards this end and are excited to continue doing so. And also I think a very interesting thing that we've been doing is transitioning from a pure online focus to offline as well. Away, as many of you know, is a digitally native brand, but a little over a year ago, we started, actually almost 2 years ago at this point, we actually launched our very first pop-up shop. And over time, we kind of realized that our initial hypothesis around this just being like an opportunity to have like a branded storefront in Soho or NoHo or what have you was actually much more than that. Customers actually really love to be able to come in and touch and feel these products, to be able to engage with the people actually behind the brand. And as it so turns out, people actually really love purchasing luggage in person as well, not just online. And so we've gotten to a point where across our 4 primary stores, each of them is actually standalone profitable, and we're going to continue investing in this additional arm of distribution, even though we started off as a digitally native brand.
Has this affected the hirings that you're making on your marketing team? Are you looking for people with more diverse backgrounds when you're filling roles, or? So
from our perspective, I think we look at e-commerce and brick and mortar retail as like 2 more or less equivalent channels. I don't think we have run into the issue of like retail wholesale, where you have to deal with different sorts of margins. And so from our perspective, buying from one place is as good as another. So when we're looking to hire people, as we're resourcing more on the retail front, we're not looking specifically for like retail-focused people. It's ultimately about how can we drive visits, drive conversion, whether we're talking online or offline.
Thank you. Collaborations, this is something I love a lot. I love seeing like what Away is going to come out with next, who they're going to partner with. Usually we know a little bit ahead of time, so that's always fun too. But they've become a major way that many brands have created excitement, have released new products, and increased frequency of sales and repeat customers. Away has released some really buzzworthy partnerships with celebrities like Rashida Jones, Carly Kloss, and most recently Dwayne Wade. What makes a great partnership, and how do you determine its success? And I think a lot of people in this room especially would also like to know, internally, how have you been able to get support to launch the number of partnerships and collaborations that you have, and make it a priority within the organization?
So in terms of gaining support, just starting there, I don't think it's ever really been something that we've had to push for. I think the early team, I think from very early on, recognized the importance of aligning with like-minded brands, like-minded celebrities, et cetera, to help tell our story. I think when you're starting off as a much smaller brand, you're always trying to find ways to be able to expand your reach, right? To be able to reach new people, reach new audiences. And so that's been a very core part of the strategy since day one. I think subsequently, as we did grow and have become more mature and gain more of an audience, I think our partnerships also play a like secondary purpose, not necessarily importance, but I guess chronologically, I think over time have also started emphasizing much more the importance of retaining our customers. While I think it is very exciting that we were able to sell customers like their first suitcase, we're definitely not content with just that. And having additional partnerships, other exciting opportunities like that, provide us an opportunity to sell someone an additional everywhere bag, an additional bigger carry-on. And I think one of the very exciting things that we are seeing also is that even though luggage is traditionally viewed as a very utilitarian product, I think with partnerships with stylish men like Dwayne Wade, stylish women like Carly Kloss, we're able to take luggage from a very functionally oriented product into much more of like a fashion item. And yeah, I think we definitely kind of see a lot of success with kind of our repeat purchase in that way.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job with that. Naomi, do you have anything?
Yeah, I'm like literally sitting here like, what color suitcase am I going to buy? I went off in my head. So no, the word collaboration is kind of just, it's not even often shared because just everything that we do is a collaboration, whether it's like a small local brand that sells bacon on QVC, which is an actual true story, all the way to like Lisa Rinna, the Kardashians, like whoever it may be, brands, whether big or small, come to us because we're a platform that enables them to tell their story in a different way than if their shirt was just hanging on a rack at Target, or no offense Target, or just sitting on an end cap in a beauty store. Like I often think of Sarah Potempa, who is the creator of a product called the Beach Waver. It's a rotating curling iron that she created literally with her and her sisters in her home, like right after graduating college, as this hairstylist, and everyone asked, like, how do you get your hair like that? I actually did have curled hair before with my Beach Waver before it rained, so do not judge the product, it's amazing. But she came to QVC because her rotating curling iron in a box on a shelf, it wasn't telling the story, and it is an incredible story, and the story is really what sells the product. So partnering with brands like Sarah, all the way to like Lisa Rinna, as I mentioned earlier, have been just innate to our business. I think influencers have obviously kind of changed the game a bit, and for a long time we were very focused as an organization on influencer marketing, and I think the future now that we're focused on is influencer commerce. How these influencers are creating product lines, and how we can be the brand that they want to come and kind of tell their story and be the next generation of how that can come to life. That's a big focus. We work with an influencer named Farah. She has over 4 million followers on a handle on Instagram called Inspire Me Home Decor, and she created an exclusive collection for QVC, and it's just absolutely incredible when you combined like great design with a great personality, with someone that has built an authentic and loyal following already, the magic that can happen with that.
Yeah.
So just continuing to kind of keep on keeping on in that space, and it has a lot of different meanings.
To chime in on that, like one of our customers, Kylie Cosmetics, maybe it's like the best example
Yeah.
in the world, but it's been like amazing to see their growth, and I do think we're gonna see much more of those influencers understanding that's the power, because the brand is now the power to basically move it into like a commerce play. And so I think like, because commerce is a great business model, especially if you have such a strong brand on social media. And we are seeing those like more and more and more, those hyper growth brands that basically are built on top of celebrities, influencers. And so that's another interesting trend we're definitely seeing a lot.
And it plays into this whole like overcrowding within the digital marketing space. It just allows you to really kind of move forward so much quicker than if you didn't have that from the start. Quick question for each of you. Current partner that you cannot live without, and also, we'll just do it at the same time, the most impressive marketing campaign you've seen this year, not your own.
I'll quickly start. So I already mentioned Looker previously, so I won't mention that again. But I think another related tool that we use is one called Airflow. It's an open sourced tool that Airbnb actually originally created. It's been a game changer for us in terms of its ability to, for us to basically build essentially custom integrations between data sources and being able to pipe them into our master data warehouse in a way where we're far from being limited to just kind of like pre-built integrations for the most common sorts of tools. So definitely really big fan of them. In terms of marketing campaigns, I don't know if you all have been reading recently about Aperol Spritz and all the marketing there, and it's one of those things where like
Aperol Spritz.
I feel like I don't know, like I was one of the people who was like duped almost, I feel like I saw
too.
like the rise, and then
I
after
bought
actually
one in
reading
duty
about
free
Yeah.
last week. I was so excited.
And so I don't know. I feel like reading about everything that Campari did, the kind of lead up to that, making it feel like very organic,
Yes.
and I think also just like seeing the the Instagrammability of like the
Yes.
drink itself and like kind of tying into like existing like user behavior, I think was just really, really smart.
Yeah, I agree. I love that.
Did you answer both? You
Yes.
did? Okay, I just want to make sure before I start talking. So I'll do it the flip way. Marketing campaign, I don't know. Beauty company Benefit, they recently did, I think it was their second year, they essentially created a competition, if you will, amongst influencers, whether micro or large, to create an eyebrow look using their product. The winner won, I think it was like a $50,000 prize, along with being like the brand ambassador for a year, and I'm probably getting it wrong a little bit, but it was a really powerful prize. But Benefit was the one that ended up making out because they had like tens and tens of thousands of influencers essentially sharing content that was really high production value because they were all attempting to win this incredible prize. So they were, literally having these people that were entering promote their brand, all while they were finding out who loves their brand, who's really great at cosmetic artistry. Like, it was just such a cool idea that I immediately went back and started thinking, like, what's our alternative there?
Thinking really big rather than like what the short-term sales are.
I just thought it was super awesome. It was like a long-term thing, totally. And then I know Tomer is up here representing another organization, but our Curate retail brands do not work with Yotpo. We work with another organization, but I just think that empowering the content that your community, whether it's customers, employees, influencers, are creating on behalf of you and making it shoppable and curating it and empowering people to create more of it. If you are not using a third-party solution to enable that, you can call Tomer or one of the other organizations that does it. I can't even fathom us not having a tool in that space.
And we do like Yotpo.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually, I hope no one's here from the vendor that we do use, but yeah, it's really powerful. I mean, you can't argue with Glossier and Kylie Cosmetics, and it's just really powerful.
All right. Well, you guys have both taken a couple of my vendors, but no, well, not vendors, but vendor types, I should say. So I'm going to say Epsilon, who we use to do, and I know a lot of brands use to do customer segmentation and tell you who your customer is and maybe who it should be. I think that's really powerful in this day of personalizing and talking to different customer segments. And then as far as a marketing campaign, I continue to love and to be delighted by Spotify. I think they've just, their use of customer data to surprise and delight us as the viewers of their marketing campaign is amazing. And I feel a little bit voyeuristic as every time I read about somebody who's listened to some song 100 times in the last 6 months. So I love the campaign.
So, like Spotify, completely agree on the marketing. I think they're doing a phenomenal job. And the vendor actually, like, beside us, of course, has been we are very, very fascinating on the loyalty category as acquisition cost is becoming higher and higher and much more expensive. And the solution and what you can do when you need to focus on retention, I want to say that's the category that I've been now very, very excited about.
Maybe with our I think this is probably going to be our last question, but touching on loyalty, what's the single most important thing that each of you has done over a period of time to increase loyalty of customers? Because although obviously we're all looking for new customers on a daily basis, keeping them and getting those repeat purchases and creating a really genuine relationship is really hard with all the noise out there and just in general the number of brands that exist right now and competing with Amazon on top of it. So would love any advice you might have.
I think for West Elm, it's just a relentless focus on the product and innovating product and always delivering something new each season for the customer to come back in and see what we're doing in the home space and just keeping ahead of the competition. So that's what I would say, the product first.
Yeah.
I think for us, there's been definitely product for us. We started off with just a single carry-on suitcase and have now launched quite a few additional products, but I think in conjunction with that, we have resourced up on the retention side, which I think has been really important. And then also even for a like very basic channel like email, I think we realized that there's like so much more that we could do with it. And actually by replatforming from this other ESP that we were working with to an ESP stack consisting of like a sending engine plus a segmentation layer. So we're using Simon Data on top of SendGrid. And we found that to be a pretty powerful way to be able to actually segment and then have like triggered flows like run off that in a very robust way and very data-centric way.
Thank you. Is that the end of our?
Yeah.
I think it's exactly 0.
exact.
Wow. Looking over here. Are we doing questions in the audience, or is there time? Or is there time up?
We have time for about 2 questions.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Lou. My question is for a way that a lot of brands are very impressed with the influencer social media community that Away has been able to build. And tons of celebrities post about you guys organically. So I was wondering, as a small company, what was the strategy to like how to get started with that? And yeah.
Yeah, so in the early days, I think, it was one of those situations where, it's not like you've established like a whole lot of traction. You don't really have the budget to, throw a lot of money at paid channels, right? And so in the early days, we actually did start off with a pre-order in late 2015 and engaged with a few like handpicked folks and provided them a promo code, not to actually get a discount off the suitcase, but rather to be able to access a like gated like VIP experience. And through that and the excitement that generated, that was really kind of the point that launched the company. And when we started shipping product in like February of 16, I think there was already this undercurrent of buzz that was, I think, very helpful. I would say that on the one hand, you can't deny the importance of kind of having personal relationships, and I do think that being in a like city like New York with a lot of other like great brands and other great marketers, where we can kind of share learnings, share relationships, great investors like Forerunner that help with relationships as well. I think those are all ways that you're able to sort of like jumpstart a little bit.
On the panel, with respect to what are some of the sources you draw from to develop your content strategy? I know customers want just any. You mentioned earlier social channels, listening, watching Facebook Live. Is there any other sources that you found success in terms of developing that content?
Or even prepping for the next generation of customers. I know that's something we talked about as well. Like maybe that's of interest to like customers in the next who's coming up as your customers.
I can speak to the home space in general. Maybe it's a softball question for the home space because you get so many questions on the front lines and in your stores and in your social media comments around how do you decorate, how should I be thinking about pairing this sofa with this coffee table, what's the right sofa for me who has children and a dog versus someone who is single in a small space apartment. So you see the sort of problems that the customers are facing firsthand, and then you can develop content around that.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
All right, well, I think we are going to take a short break and then go into our breakout sessions. Melissa and the panel, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Round of applause for those guys.